So I think I'm the last one standing between you guys and lunch. Always a dangerous proposition. And I was actually wondering, considering that yesterday I had the equally dreaded post-lunch slot. Now I have the pre-lunch. I'm wondering if it's a Dario's subtle way to punishing me of being, a buzzword bomb dropper. But I'll try to do my best. Before I go to the presentation also, because, it's never good to have loose ends. And you might have not noticed that during the introduction this morning, Dirk mentioned that yesterday evening, Dubrovnik was on fire. And you would hear more. I don't know if you heard that or that just flew, but the next event is almost run like the MCU. You have Easter eggs that go all over the way. So I will explain to you why Dubrovnik was on fire last night, and actually literally. So around 1 a.m., I was just going to bed after the great evening. Suddenly, alarms in my hotel, etc. Had dropped my PJs, find my computer, most precious thing ever, and exit the building. And actually, my hotel was on fire, literally. Fortunately, nothing bad happened, no casualty, etc. But that was an eventful one. So if I'm a bit low energy, I will try to. And I don't have food, so I'm like you guys. But that was so a bit the Easter egg that Dirk was planting. But I'm an optimistic guy. I think that's one of the takeaways from yesterday. So I took it as an opportunity to watch the NBA Finals, which was, again, depressing for me. But I will continue. But being optimistic, and I think also other takeaway from yesterday, if you recall, I was telling and challenging everyone, to be curious, to think differently, and to try to look at problems in a different way. I will be trying actually to walk the talk, as the proverb says today. So say that in our very humble scale, we tried to look at things a bit differently from a curious manner and do something on a tiny scale about it. And what we did was actually looking at the question. We've talked during those 2 days about what to do with data. Data is the new oil. We need data. Everything will be fed by data. And here, if we look at it slightly differently, well, Emma was saying about the great didn't apply concept. I'm almost wondering if about data, all our digital solution, what about the great didn't sign up? How many patients are we missing for digital health solution? Well, even before COVID, we had a lot of people that were simply opting out solutions, perhaps because the solutions were not great, but they were saying as a key primary reason why they didn't even sign for a solution is, I don't know what's going on with my data. I don't trust those solutions. So really, that's actually already a big part that we are missing. And that's something that triggered our curiosity. So we wanted to look at it. What can we do? Can we explore? Can we find alternatives? So that will be our humble journey, and with a lot of falls and getting back up again on that matter. I think you already seen me. No need to reintroduce myself. Only notice that I found is you have seen a lot during those 2 days about French guys living in Switzerland. So that might be also something to check in terms of diversity. So sorry for having yet another one, but I also have the Swiss citizenship, so I'm not fully fitting the bill. So why is it an issue? Why is this lack, of data and this privacy concern we just discussed before a potential issue? Because if we think there is a huge case, imagine we have all the data in the world, and again, here I'm being super optimistic, almost in the Care Bear type of territory, but all the data for all the patients in the world, you run a super nice and friendly algorithm that will learn from it. We can have, run AI, identify therapies for orphan disease. We can control the pandemics much better. We can have lifelong medical records. That's something that we don't have today. It's insane. And I'm just reflecting myself as a patient. I had last year a very bad bout of long COVID. And it was amazing how many times I had to share the same data, how many parts of the data was missing, how wearables data was not trusted, etc. So that was reinforcing me that the long-term societal gain is huge to have access to patient data. But there is a very, very clear reason why we don't have access and why us as patients, and I would be the first one not willing to share any type of data in the cloud, is do we know what's actually done with our data the moment we lose sight of them? Not very much. The data can be used to profile us. Data can be leaked. Again, that's maybe a fun story for lunch, but I have some that are very interesting. So basically, the cons outweigh mightily the pros of having access to this data. So here, buzzword alert, you heard me already say it a bit yesterday, but I'm a true optimistic, perhaps way too much, but thinking that blockchain can actually be a fascinating solution for that. I will not go in a huge technical course. There are much smarter people than me that already saw the opportunity, but if you need to get two concepts on blockchain, is a traditional database, it's a central box. So you put your data in the central box like you put your money in a bank. The bank is solid to protect it, but if the bank gets robbed, you don't see your data, you don't see your money, it is gone. Here in a blockchain, that's why we call distributed. You heard me say the word a lot yesterday. Distributed, that simply means that the data is spread across so many so-called nodes. Those nodes are relaying fast information that is encrypted, hence the crypto thing in it. So, and the only person that is owning the master key to get your data is you, as an individual, as a patient, as a citizen. So I'm a true believer that this concept, giving back the ownership of data to individuals, could be the solution. How could that solve our issue in healthcare? So we talked about this technology. Why could it be interesting in healthcare? So again, imagine that as a patient, you have all your health data that is controlled by you, not by an HCP, not by an institution, not by someone who's choosing and filtering what is passing to the next physician, etc. You know also how it's used. Again, other aspect of blockchain, but it can show that you see and you have traceability. So you say, I grant you access of my data for that usage. If that trust is broken, you know it, you are aware, which today it's not the case. We think we throw our data away and we don't know what's going on. So I really truly believe that this could be something that would be powerful, but it's not something that can easily be achieved alone. And that's why really I will go now in explaining how we went about it. When I started to have this passion for blockchain and this concept about blockchain for health patients, it's not something that's started overnight. And that's why I call the inward out journey. Most of the work started back in 16 when I was learning about it and then talking about it internally. It takes a lot of conviction. It takes a lot of momentum to change the mindset in organizations. So it's nothing fancy. It might sound very depressing because by the time Haider was running a full-blown digital transformation in a major company, it took me the same time just to convince a bunch of people that it might actually be interesting to be looking in that blockchain thing. But little by little, I think the key element was being relentless, being curious, not being taken aback by any type of negative feedbacks. I've been laughed out of stage by rooms much bigger than yours, but again, having a thick skin and being optimistic helped. And really, little by little, creating the stories. You saw some of the Legos before. Those were actually some of the Legos I was using to creating, user journeys I was thinking, so people could grasp this abstract concept into something they could relate and they could abide to. So little by little, we started to have more and more people that got enthusiastic about it, and even more, and I was super happy, actually equally passionate than me about it and making it happen. And once we started having that, that's when you start, those theoretical journeys, they can actually become an addressing, and I loved hearing the word just before because that's something I'm very, very passionate about. It's addressing jobs to be done. So suddenly, we actually have a tech solution, but it's not a tech solution just for the fancy, JP wants to do blockchain for his ego and be the first one. Yeah, very happy, but that will not help anyone. But if we start to have true business problems that we really believe that this solution can be the best one for, then we start to have something that's sizzling. And it took time. We also had to be sure that we were finding the right place, in order to hedge our bets. It's a privacy-friendly thing, so perhaps going to a country that, was very, very sensitive to GDPR. That might be a better place than somewhere where actually people don't even realize that data privacy is an issue. So finding this right mix, this right business problem, the right people, that took us a couple of years, again, but it still allowed us to get to the stage where we could go out and experiment. We could pilot it. I know we heard a lot about pilots, the pros, the cons, etc. But again, it was about going out, making it happen on a small scale, taking the learnings and scaling it up. So what we did, we partnered with a small startup that we had met along the way. This startup offered a super simple solution. I think that's really an important part about innovation. We need to go for simple things if we want to experiment, but simple things done in a different way. So here, the simple solution is they had a health diary for patients to track their condition, but as we were looking at conditions where you don't want your data, to be going elsewhere, to be leaked, etc. Imagine that you have some recurrent skin rashes, and you need to take pictures of those rashes to show to your HCP, because by the time you have an appointment with your derm, the rash is gone, and it's difficult to judge what's happening. Depending on where the rash is on your body, you don't want that data to go to a cloud. So those were, we are trying to find the right use cases. So here, what they were doing is having this journal encrypted in a blockchain, so the data was not going anywhere, but being encrypted at the patient's level. If the patient wanted to exchange it with an HCP, it was done via a smart contract. It could even be exchanged by Bluetooth if the patient wanted, not going to the net. So really trying to address that job to be done, that concern, like, okay, patients want a very safe way to share some very sensitive data. So we tried, we piloted it. Interesting learnings. The first one is that actually it worked. Compared to the benchmarks we had for other apps, we went basically twice the level of adoption, which was really, really good for us. That's the positive. The negative is even if we had twice the level of adoption, we still had 60% of people that didn't want to use it. And here, when we were looking back, we thought that the education also, it's not just about having a nice tech and telling people, look, trust that tech, it will be better. I think we have seen that during COVID, that it takes a bit more to explain. And actually, blockchain has a strange equity with the thing that it's much safer, but people see it as a kind of shady, hacky stuff. Just a fun story. That was actually happening to me during phase 1, when I was trying to evangelize and get people convinced to go from phase 1 to phase 2. I thought I did a good job with our procurement team to sell them the project, to tell them what I wanted to do, etc. And I was like, oh, good, very happy with myself. Left the meeting. 5 minutes later, saw an email from a head of procurement to our general counsel. Yeah, Julien wants to buy patients' data with Bitcoin on the dark web. Is it okay? Yeah, that was almost the end of my career. So there was a lot of damage control. So you can imagine that's the same thing for patients. There is a lot of environment shaping to explain the technology. And also, if we are the only ones to do it, and there are no alternatives that is making it a replicable experience, we are not going far. So that was really the key learning, is that for our next projects, and I think that was the leitmotiv from what we heard a lot this morning, also what Davidek was saying, is that it takes a village, we need to partner. So it's not only about us, but actually, I would really love that other companies are doing the same, are using the same technology, so we can offer a similar experience. Even better, we start to partner with the same third parties. So as we were saying, a patient don't have to have 6 different apps because of 6 conditions, but they can go and find them doing it. So here, now, what we are doing at the moment is, instead of trying to partner for the next app, build the next solution, etc., we took a different approach. We are looking now at untraditional partners. So for instance, a foundation. And there is a foundation in the Crypto Valley in Switzerland that is aiming at, we are not doing that for profit. We are not building killer apps, but we are creating a blockchain ecosystem for patient data. And here they are looking at partners, so pharma companies, insurances, teaching hospital, etc., to be part of that network, to host. You remember the nodes that we had before. The more nodes and the more, vested ownership in those nodes that we have, which is what we do. The more the network is distributed, the better incentive there are for everyone to build on it and to create this environment. So that's something we are very excited about. We joined that network a couple of months ago. We saw that other major pharmas are also starting to join it. So again, in this spirit of collaboration, I think that's a really great first step. The next step will be, can we work together to build some use case on it? But it's a continuous journey. It's just something that we are building time after time, step after step, but really trying to go from, those internal turmoils, those learnings from the first semi-successful pilots towards going to something that's really, hopefully, much more collaborative. So, all conclusions, just in a couple of words, but I think really one thing that's important, and we heard the news about these new European laws that are passed, and I think that's something that's extremely exciting. And I also had the opportunity a couple of 2 years ago to be consulted and to give an opinion, and I was just dreaming that there would be a law that would say that patients are the owner of their data. Well, when I made those slides and I started talking about it, that was still a pipe dream. This is about to happen. So you see that change is happening. That's very important. But scale for those type of projects can only happen via collaboration. And it's really important for us. That's what we were discussing yesterday about the metaverse. That applies here as well. We need to be very open to the different players that are shaping our environment. It's not the same ones that we are trying to look at. There are different type of institutions that are going, and they actually are much more powerful than we can be to create these long-term changes, because they don't need to deliver on the next quarter revenue. And finally, we need to acknowledge that it takes time. We need to go and to do a lot of work internally. We need then to go and to start convincing. We need to be very, very diligent about finding true business need. We cannot force a tech solution, even if it's as hype and buzzworthy as this one, to make it happen. No, it needs to address those real needs. And finally, part of this relentless element, and hopefully next time it will be slightly easier, because we need to use those to help us transform. Because when we say transformation, it's an enterprise-wide thing. It's not just commercial functions, medical functions, or IT-ish functions that are doing it. But if you are not working, explaining, my story with procurement is a perfect example. If we are not educating procurement how to discuss those projects, how to understand them, we are going to have the same problems. And we might be missing out on some great initiatives because people are like, ooh, procurement is on my back, I go away. And this education goes a long way, also ethics and compliance. They are great partners. We just need to take them along the way to ask the right questions from the beginning, because signing those contracts, you can imagine, those are not things that we know how to do, but we just need to have this translation and use every one of them as a step along the way. But as I said, just wanted to share a bit that sometimes, optimism and utopism can happen, even if it's not a finished and complete one. And then, on this one, just wanted to already wish you a great lunch, as promised. I was not going to overstep. Thank you.